Are you looking for a new adventure? Did you ever want to visit the city where all your nightmares reside? Well, you're in luck. Join us, your tour guides, Christine and Jen, to visit Nopeville, where you will be personally escorted on an all-inclusive trip through the city and see all possibilities of terror and fright.
You'll see all sorts of things on your tours, including, but definitely not limited to, the paranormal, true crime, the supernatural, and more. If you're into all that and enjoy a little dark humor, book your tour today and Nope right along with us. Check us out on our website at nopevillepodcast.com to see where you can listen to Nopeville today.
Go, 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 go. Hello, welcome to the What Have We Done podcast. I'm Lee, and I like to host podcasts.
My name is Dre, and I like to listen to Lee talk during these podcasts.
My name's Jay. I blinked twice, which indicates I'm being held hostage.
This is a podcast for the thinkers among us. It aims to uncover the truth, not the right or wrong answer of the masses. Some topics discussed might make you uncomfortable, but that's kind of the point. We think we're heading in a bad direction and we need to talk about this stuff. If you've made it this far, you probably know that this is the 4th episode in our series on technology. So far, we've covered some classic philosophers such as Plato and Socrates. We looked at Francis Bacon and Martin Heidegger. In episode 2, we moved on to Karl Marx, the controversial communist. Ben Franklin, we talked about my boy Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. Episode 3, we moved on to some of the more negative opinioned people on, I don't know if you can even call them philosophers. Some of them were just kind of terrorists.
Yeah, I wouldn't call Teddy philosopher by any stretch of the imagination.
Unabomber.
He was a doer.
Yep, we had Bernard Stiegler.
Shock, lol.
Jocolo. Bernard Stiegler actually just found out passed away 10 days ago, so rest in peace.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Yeah, I was looking up,
peace.
and unfortunate news. And we talked about Albert Borgman. On today's episode, we'll wrap up our series on technology. We're going to talk about what's being done to police technology and hold those crossing the line accountable. That definitely includes the modern techno complex that has created between the legislative committees, the government agencies, and various industries to really just make this juggernaut that's unstoppable, and who knows if they're really looking out for the best interest of us, their people. And then we'll talk a little bit about what lies ahead for technology in the age of futurism, and finally we'll just wrap up on technology by actually looking at a couple of the threats directly head on and see what we think about them. After this, we're going to have a special episode on a man that we're going to ask the question whether he was a villain to the world or if he was a victim of a system that was just designed to really not help him out.
Sounds familiar.
We'll get more details on that next episode, but I think you guys will enjoy that one a lot. Our primary source, once again, is The Philosophy of Technology by Wiley Blackwell. And again, we ask anyone who's listening if you could check us out on some social media. WHWD Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Facebook. If you find us on Apple or Podchaser, if you could leave us a review. If you could even just subscribe to us on any platform you're listening, just to make sure you listen next week. We'd really appreciate it. And then from there, if you enjoyed our podcast, we'd enjoy if you could, help us just fund it. It's not cheap to make these, and so even if you could just send us $1 per episode you enjoy on PayPal, we'd really be appreciated, and we'd give you a personal shout out on the show. If you didn't enjoy it, what we'd appreciate even more is if you could send us an email. Jay, where can they email us again?
They can send us an email at whathavewedonepodcast@gmail.com. Send us constructive criticism instead of please just don't send you guys suck. LOL.
I've literally sent 100 emails that just say, you guys suck. That's me, if you guys were wondering. I've been the one sending all this.
I actually...
Dre does a really great job of filling that niche, so we could use, other emails that aren't...
podcast_listener_1@gmail.com. That was me, guys. I'm sorry.
Plot twist.
My goodness.
This is the end of our first series, so at this point, we'd love to hear your guys' feedback on kind of what we discussed, the topic we're discussing, how we're discussing it.
It's true. Boom roasted.
The other thing is, we just want to hear you guys' suggestions on how you think we can improve the show, such as like, let us know if you want to see some interviews or guest hosts. If so, let us know who we should talk to. Don't suggest Alex Jones. I've already made that suggestion multiple times. I don't know if we're going to get him on the podcast, but please, Daddy, come on our podcast. If you guys would let us know if you guys would be interested in a Patreon for bonus episodes or kind of like after hours or private topics. Let us know if you guys would maybe buy our merch. We're kind of trying to think of some ideas for merch, so maybe send us your guys' ideas for merchandise, all that fun stuff. Don't be afraid to send us some show segments or topic ideas.
The future is here.
A team of scientists at the University of Chicago have discovered a way to make quantum states last 10,000 times longer than previously reported. The change allowed the system to stay coherent up to 22 milliseconds, far longer than any previous reported electron spin system. For comparison, the blink of an eye only takes 350 milliseconds. Applicability of the discovery enables new research opportunities previously thought impractical. The state of Michigan announced their plan to build a 40-mile-long roadway for self-driving vehicles between Detroit and Ann Arbor. The roadway will have corridors that are digitally mapped and outfitted with communications technologies to aid the computers controlling the vehicles. Google's Waymo, GM's Cruise, Forgo's AI, Tesla, Chase, Baidu, and Uber. I don't even know how to pronounce the next company are among the top names in self-driving automobile development. Google announced a new homework filter for the Lens application that claims to solve math problems with just a photo. That's right, you can copy and paste from Google to solve all your math problems. Once the app is live, users will simply snap a take of their study material, highlight a troublesome equation or a complex problem, will be given access to step-by-step solution guides.
So, technology and political power. So, I think before we even get started, I mean, that's just, it feels like they're hugging the technological powers and the political powers, right? They're buddies. It feels like they all fund each other. They all vote for each other. They leave power from one and go to power in the other. You know, I mean, is that a pretty common felt opinion at this point, you think?
I mean, it really depends on the corporations that kind of more or less develop these proprietary technologies. Like, there's a lot of momentum, I believe, for a lot of open source technologies, like the RISC-V processor architecture, which is completely open source. And before, a common, I guess, complaint was that, like, Intel, like their proprietary processor designs and stuff like that, it was kind of like almost like an open secret that there were like backdoors and stuff that the NSA could take advantage of, kind of intrude on a person's privacy and potentially surveil them through without any knowledge to the actual end user. So with kind of open source technologies that any user can open and vet, and I think that is a good step toward the right direction, is kind of like the open source movement. And I feel like that the whole RISC-V concept is to me is a proof of concept that open source doesn't have to necessarily have to be restricted to software. It can be restricted to hardware designs and stuff
right.
Certain stuff
That's
like
a good
that.
Community. There's a brewery by me that it's an open source menu. So at any time you can go to this brewery's like website and you can see what's in its vats. You can see the recipe for it. You can see all the fermentation numbers. And so I'm a home brewer, so I'm very fascinated by that, you know? So I'm on there
Yeah,
like, this
that's
is
really
how
cool.
a professional does it. So that's pretty cool. But so that's an example of using open source technology in a totally unthinkable way, to me, at least before I heard of that. You know, I never would have thought to do something. But it's going
helps
to take
everybody.
these people that want to share, exactly.
That helps the little
we
guy
need
that
people that
doesn't
want
know
to help
anything about it.
everyone instead of helping themselves. And that's, you know, it's commendable to me. It's a hard thing to find these days.
Kind of going back, I think a lot of the criticism in terms of like the technological and political complexes kind of merging together is the fact that a lot of like certain, we'll call them organizations, can mandate that, can send like non-disclosure letters like, hey, you have to implement this so that we can surveil potential terrorists and stuff like that. And literally then said company would have no way to really kind of tell their users, oh, by the way, your information may potentially be compromised in a national security investigation.
They don't even realize. Yeah, right. Oh my goodness.
So a lot of that stuff to me is
NDAs, all that
Yeah.
fun stuff.
Yeah,
Sign off
NDAs.
on your NDA because if something goes wrong, you're part of it too.
That's right.
No.
So yeah, the general name that people refer to this as is the Techno Complex, which they kind of call it a three-way alliance of legislative committees, government agencies, and the actual industries themselves, that they all kind of promote the technology in one way or another. One common example I've seen is that the legislative branch supported railroads and public mass transit, and it was blocked by a coalition of auto manufacturers, insurance companies, oil companies, labor unions, and the highway construction industry.
That is so
That
fucked up to me.
that
The fact
is.
that like just lobbies can completely block the advancement
Yep.
of mankind just so they can
Yep.
support their fat wallets. That to me is so
It's all money. It's
infuriating.
all money right there. It's like, well, these 6 people don't want their wallets to be smaller for this one person to have a larger wallet because they
Right.
know
I wouldn't
that
even just
their
say it's one
industry is
person. It's
getting-
the benefit. It's more like the benefit of like an entire country, but at the expense of bettering the lives of
Right.
millions of people. Our wallets are going.
Unbelievable.
Us 6 people are going to have a slightly smaller. We're going to have slightly smaller
Darn it.
dividends to play to our
Exactly.
to our
Yeah.
stockholders. That's a shame.
Gotta
Can't
make
have
sure I
that.
can get good presents for Christmas.
Yeah, shit. We can't go buy our second Maserati for my child,
Right.
who still is not old enough to drive.
And, I think it's important to note that citizens can influence. I'm not here pushing you to go vote, but if you feel,
You should. Not saying
I
that
think
you
you
shouldn't.
should.
You definitely
Yeah,
should go vote.
I agree. Yeah, I don't disagree at all. But so citizens can influence the direction of this stuff. When people are against something, generally speaking, look at the Washington Redskins. 2 years ago, they were never going to change their name, and now they're the Washington football team. And why is it? It's because of the wallets, right? It's because so many people were against it that their sponsors dropped them, and then the wallets changed. So, never say people don't have power, but you got to be careful what power people have, too. They don't have all the power. They just have a little power.
Unfortunately, it just really comes down to the amount of power people have is to like almost limited to how much the average person contributes to their wallet, so to speak. Kind of like Lee's example, where the Washington football team is now the Washington football team instead of the Redskins. It was because these different companies threatened to boycott and what was it? Stop selling advertising to the Washington football team. And
I would argue that it is definitely the most controversial name of a football team
100%.
exists in
That's
the
the
NFL.
thing is,
Like,
no
without a
matter
doubt.
no matter who you are or what you are, like if there was a team called the Washington Whiteskins or the Washington Blackskins, that would be a weird team, wouldn't it?
It would be,
Regardless of the racial
100%.
person, that's just a weird name to me, And then you learn about why people said Redskin, and then you see the racial impact of it, and it's like it's a no-brainer. Get rid of it.
The truth behind the Washington Redskins. Dude, no, actually, this is a very, very good story. Do you guys remember when the internet was asked to name the new Mountain Dew like 10 years ago? Oh, man. I don't want to totally derail the conversation, but that is something our viewers should really look into to see the power that you have.
yeah,
Didn't they name a boat like
Bodie
you guys-
McBoatface.
Yeah.
That's like the meme of you ask if you ask the internet for anything, you're just gonna get Blanky McBlankface. That is
That's-
the name you're gonna get, or that, or
That's
Adolf
the power
Hitler.
of the people and not bots, hopefully, because like in a perfect world you wouldn't have bots, they're just doing it. But anyway, that's the
Bots
power
just
that-
learned from us.
Or that, or like your product will literally just be either named Blanky McBlankface or Adolf Hitler. That will be your that is what you will get from the internet.
I'm not an
true.
expert in branding, but I don't think either of those are a good option for
Exactly.
you. Really.
You never do an open anonymous poll on the internet. It is not good.
So the little final point I have on technology here is one thing you need to be aware of is the integral accident, they call it. So An example of this is no one ever got hit by a car until cars were invented, right? So,
That's
what
a
I mean?
controversial and brave statement.
So, so that's just an example. So right before the car was invented, probably a lot of people were like, "Man, I can't wait to drive a car." Probably very few people were like, "What's going to happen when these people start running into other people?"
I can't wait to get hit by a car.
Exactly. I don't think many people were thinking that. And so a more current example would be with self-driving cars. Like, if you've heard the dilemmas where a self-driving car has to choose between running over like a group full of children or driving the owner off a cliff, but the owner paid for the car, what does the car do? Does the car side with its owner, or does the car drive off the cliff because that's the better solution for everyone?
It's that trolley meme where it's
Yeah.
you turn the lever and it's like, which way do you go? It's just that straight up moral dilemma.
Right.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. What?
When
My parents aren't home. I know. I have them.
right. Well, and then I think until now we've answered the moral dilemma ourselves somewhat. I'm not saying it was good or bad. It was bad, but with AI, when they're answering these dilemma questions, who knows?
Never. I honestly admit, until we brought this up just now, I never thought about it that much.
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
The fact that if you have AI that's choosing one over the other, it's like, well, now who's at fault? Nobody. It's like who created that logic?
Well, right. And then in our world where people have to be sued and prosecuted and crap, who's illegally responsible for that car doing that? Who's
the kids who are jaywalking?
That's probably what it'll be too. You're not even kidding. They're like,
be in America, get hit by a self-driving car.
Absolutely
Get
not.
sued by a car maker.
Jaywalking is a serious problem in today's society. We've solved it with self-driving cars.
I can't wait to see.
6-year-olds have been sued by a dead Swedish man and Uber.
I can't wait to see the sequel to Dread. Crimes jaywalking. Sentence is death. How do you plead? Defense noted. And then automatic car runs him over.
Yeah, the witness is the automatic car. So, the only philosopher we're going to talk about today is this guy Lewis Mumford. We're just going to touch on him real quick. He just used these two words, which I thought were kind of interesting. Some sorts of technological advancements can fall under the polytechnic category. And he enlists many different modes of technology and provides a complex framework. So anything that really works to solve human problems, no matter where it falls into this complex algorithm that solves the problems, he considers a polytechnical solution. So that's when he likes to think that the whole community works together to solve these problems.
I would argue that would be better, and I know we haven't gotten to the
right.
next one.
Well,
I would argue
I think that is what
goal.
he argued, right? So the monotechnic's kind of the opposite, right? It's technology for the sake of technology. It oppresses humanity for the most part, as it benefits itself over humankind. So, I mean, and this is kind of actually under the same line with cars. Modern reliance on cars for the convenience of travel. It's quicker, and it takes up, they take up a lot of space on the roads. They're dangerous. They pollute the world, right? They've killed how many people? And so he actually calls the automobile a ritual, like the death to the automobile is a ritual sacrifice for us to drive automobiles.
Wow, that's a way to put it.
That's
it's
a
fucked,
very
isn't
interesting
it?
way to put it.
But
How does Ford feel about that?
I don't know. We actually couldn't get a hold of Henry.
We could ask like about the Ford Pinto. Like I feel like that was a ritual sacrifice to even just turn it on without the engine exploding, but
4 of them were made and 3 exploded or something.
right.
So yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting way to look at technology. So whenever you're looking at a new technology and you're excited, ask yourself if it benefits human society or
if it's just technology.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, what a great idea.
And what
Look
is
at
the
that
cost of
technology over
it
there.
to just be technology, Like the smartphone was invented and every dinner since has been like 30% quieter. I'm certain of it. you know? But that's kind of good, right? Maybe that's good or bad. I don't know.
Yeah, my Thanksgiving dinners are a lot more peaceful now when I don't have to pay attention to my racist grandfather-in-law. It's really
See,
nice.
this is a scenario
Father-in-law.
where it's beneficial.
It's actually a
right?
benefit.
It's a benefit, but at what cost?
So, before we get into all of the doom and gloom, I thought we'd have a nice little fun thing here. So, we're going to talk about 7 top futurists who were asked to make predictions for the next 10 years. The first of which is Dr. Michio Kaku, professor of theoretical physics at City University College of New York.
All right, hold on, cut. We will see the gradual transition from an internet to a brain net, in which thoughts, emotions, feelings, and memories might be transmitted instantly across
This
the
quote
planet.
is saying, okay, I just want to look at it again. We will see the gradual transition from an internet to a brain net in which thoughts, emotions, feelings, and memories might be transmitted. Okay, so he's really suggesting. When I first read this, I was thinking like, oh, you're sharing emotions over the internet, but this is
So,
literally saying that
I mean,
you're literally
that
like
doesn't sound too surprising.
you're going to
me.
be connected to the internet. Like,
Like we're hooking up watches that read our heartbeats and stuff, you know.
Well, it's kind of like, well, I mean, at one point, like, Facebook was running, like, some psychology experiment without the consent of any of its users. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, any other company is also doing that.
for sure. Yes. Dr. Ray Kurzweil, the director of engineering at Google. We're like 99% sure he's listened to our podcast. But anyway, he said, and I quote, 3D printers will print, ... clothing at a very low cost, human organs using modified stem cells within the patient's own DNA, providing an inexhaustible supply of organs with no rejection issues. Wow, he probably didn't even consider blood type with that anyway. Inexpensive modules to snap together a house or office building like a Lego style. So those 3 things, I mean, brilliant. We're pretty damn close to that. I'm pretty sure.
It's pretty close. My coworker did print me out like a Thanos Kirby and a dragon. So I mean, we're pretty close to.
Why
what,
doesn't anyone just sell
Dr. Ray
giant
Kurzweil
Legos?
said.
You could have insulation in
saying.
them.
And this is within the next 10 years. So I'm not sure when exactly he said this, but I can say that that third one on the list, inexpensive modules to snap together a house or an office building, I'm pretty sure they have these, like, I don't know what the company's called, but you can like buy a shed for like $10,000.
Right,
It's
yep.
like a mini garage. And
Yep.
this thing is a home. It's a full-blown home that you can just like pop up and like
Wherever you
fold
want.
together. Yeah.
Yep.
And you know,
It's really amazing.
it's interesting that that's like existing right now.
Yeah, I must say I'm surprised that hasn't really been a thing. Is where like they just print like 3D print like large Lego style things, and
I want to
Literally
sell
just
those.
use Legos and
it's like the IKEA.
Insulation.
It's like an IKEA house.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can get lost in it. Do you hear about the guy that placed the arrows on the ground and led people through a maze in IKEA? Instead of it
What?
going like straight through, it like took you to like the bathroom section and it just like went in a circle. So people were getting lost like left and right. Anyway.
That's
so
a modern day hero.
That's right. That's right. We'll get to the heroes.
If that
in
guy's
the,
listening, give us a call. We'll get you on the show.
in the villain or
Please,
victim
we want an interview.
series. He was definitely a hero.
Victim.
All right, so he did have one other quote, which was, this is Dr. Ray Kurzweil, and I quote, "We will spend considerable time in virtual and augmented realities, allowing us to visit each other even if hundreds of miles apart." Wow, hello, FaceTime, and
Hello, VR chat.
hello, Striking Vipers. That's a Black Mirror
Well,
quote.
but so
for anybody
augmented
who's-
reality would be like you're sitting on your couch and you look over and like all 3 of us are in the same room. You know what I mean? Like we can see our whole
Right.
bodies moving and stuff.
Or me as Ugandan Knuckles.
That's actually, yeah.
Why are you sitting? Why
Why are
aren't
you
you
sitting?
running? Like, bro, we're sitting on the couch, bro. We're chilling, dude.
Why are you sitting?
So this is within 10 years. I believe that. I believe
Me
that.
too.
If you
can
said
see
right
that.
now, by 2030 we'll have augmented reality, and Lee, you could be in my apartment, and we could just be
Yeah.
sitting like next
And
to
at
each
that
other.
point, do people even leave their house ever?
That's right. Then we're getting into the Ready Player One
Matrix,
concept.
right? Same idea, yeah.
But that's all I got on Ray Kurzweil.
So Ray.
Next up, we got Dr. Anne Lee Scher, founder of London-based trend forecasting agency Gear Global. Alright, I'm not Swiss or Swedish or Nordic in any
See,
imaginable
I'm
sense.
all those, and that was
So-
perfect, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have no idea.
Okay,
It's
I was
gotta
gonna
be
say because
close,
I'm butchering it, so please send me a pronunciation guide. I'm coming into this blind, so anywho, the evolution of mHealth, which is defined as mobile diagnostics, biofeedback, and personal monitoring, is set to revolutionize treatment of conditions such as diabetes and high blood pressure. And what excites me even more is the parallel development of apps that meet our underserviced mental health needs.
So have you seen
So a lot of these
like,
are-
those
okay.
rings that you can get? Like, I don't know if they just call them smart rings. I don't have one, but I think they're claiming that they can like tell you that you're about to get a cold and stuff, because they notice like trends in your sleeping habits and your blood and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I've heard about those.
I think that's
those are
the
pretty
kind
cool.
of stuff that they're talking about here, and even like smart watches.
This goes hand in hand with like your mood ring. Remember mood rings from? I mean, they exist currently, but
Yeah.
That was like the
I feel like
analog.
those were a scam though.
That was the analog version. Yeah.
it was like if you got hot, if your blood pressure was warm, it would turn red, and you were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm angry." And it's like, no, it's actually just a sensor that tells you that you're warm, and now you're changing colors. Yeah, but everybody was like, "No way."
This is so revolutionary.
And now it's like, no, we can like tell you when you're going to get sick, like in 4 days.
It's I mean, and I think it's only going to keep getting better, obviously. But I mean, how long until they're it just somehow monitors our blood all the time? Like they just put a little smart chip inside of us with a sensor, and it just monitors like it'll be a live blood
man,
test on your watch.
You're speaking to that real right-wing echo chamber in Twitter right now. You're gonna get like the RFID is real.
It's only a matter of time, man. It's coming.
Mark of the beast.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it's coming. So this next guy I think is fascinating that he's on the list. Do you see his credentials here?
Jason Silva.
Jason Silva, the host of National Geographic Channel's Brain Games. Quote, "We will move into a world in which access trumps ownership and the world is at our fingertips."
But so the point I was trying to make is he is the host of National Geographic Channel's Brain Games. That's his qualification. Look at the other people on this list, and then look at him.
I was gonna say I don't know if he's like up there with.
No,
I'm gonna say he just
kind of one of
I
those
don't know,
things
I
is
just-
not like the other.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, granted, I mean, a lot of I guess I can kind of see like the abstract thought where that's coming from, where like basically the more we kind of upload or more of our information we upload, be it through like statuses, like Facebook statuses, tweets,
Yup.
and more kind of how we discussed earlier, like personal information, like average
Yeah.
blood pressure and stuff like that. I mean, we don't really own that information anymore. It's more now just kind of open to
kinda
access to
scary.
whoever's.
If you know where to look,
It
you
really
can probably
is.
find it. Yeah. So yeah, that's Jason Silva. The next guy is Dr. James Canson. He is CEO of San Francisco-based Institute for Global Futures. This is such a smooth-sounding college or institute for global futures. So he says that wearable mobile devices will blanket the world, which I think we're already pretty much. I mean, I believe that completely.
Fitbit.
Yeah, it's just happening. Humans and robots merge digitally, physically to treat patients who may be around the world. Robo surgeons will operate remotely on patients RoboDocs. I love the names of these. RoboDocs will deliver babies and treat you over the cell phone. That's already happening. Early diagnosis of disease with medical devices that sniff our breath. I don't like that.
I feel like that sounds like a breathalyzer.
Yeah, for real. And free
You're drunk.
free DNA
Everything's
sequencing
fine.
that predicts
You're
our
just
future health.
really
I've just diagnosed you with alcoholism.
Yeah, so I mean that's the same kind of stuff we just talked about, but he's saying the same thing. We're just gonna be basically data points in a big survey, and if you're a blip, it's gonna be they're coming for you, baby.
Dr. Amy Zalman, CEO and president of the World Future Society, also known as WFS. She says, researchers now have at their disposal increasingly acute ways of looking into our brains and bodies to understand our attitudes and behavior. See, that's a great quote, and I'm sure she's right, but I've had a tinfoil hat on my entire life, so I know that I'm
Nice, you're
on the side
safe,
of
buddy.
that.
You're
I
safe.
know
Yeah.
I'm not worried about this.
Yeah, that's why
true.
that's why your camera's off.
Must be the
It's always
tinfoil.
off, bro. I've had my tinfoil. The camera's off because I don't want you guys to know my secret tinfoil hat that I have. Safety.
Safety always off.
Well, let's think
Camera
about this for a
always
second, then.
off.
They do. Researchers do have at their disposal increasingly acute ways of looking into our brains and bodies to understand our attitudes and behavior. I mean, what did we just talk about? Like, you have a
Yep.
smartwatch, you know,
We're
you
giving them
have
all the
my
data.
Google search history. You have like the most recent thing that was looked up for my IP address, you know, like everything's there. I mean, that's there.
It's
The
terrifying.
only thing
Yep.
would be if they had literally a probe on us that was like, I can feel your thoughts.
Well, and that isn't that kind of like the 5G conspiracy with Corona? Yeah, I'm not supporting that, but with Bill Gates and
Oh,
isn't that what people are saying? Is that they think like
I think that's more just like people think that like 5G is injecting coronavirus into them.
Unbelievable.
It's something like astronomically
just follow
stupid that
science, people?
nobody who like has
Follow science.
you know
I
who,
think
nobody
there's
who
a
is
level
literate
of,
like believes in.
social media where it's just like you're like a stan Twitter user that just stands like these absurd ideas. Like I think that there's a cutoff point where it's like, okay, there's this crazy 5G idea, but only like 10% of those people actually believe it, and then the other 90% are just trolling,
100%
in my opinion.
for sure.
Well, that's the whole. There's a whole theory just based on that, and I'm blanking on the guy's theory, but it's the whole thing like something might start as like an ironic thing, but then like it attracts the people who
Flat Earth,
mistake
baby.
it for being a real thing, and then just kind of overwhelm it because, and then it,
How could people possibly still believe?
let me think of the
Flat
guy. I
Earth
can't
is
think of the
a
guy's theory that
thing?
like.
Bro, first of all, it is. Okay, I'm one of
Unbelievable.
13 people that know.
I love me a good conspiracy theory, but like, come on.
Also, this isn't to put down anybody that does believe in the Flat Earth Society, or if you're part of the Flat Earth Society. Like we are all about the
Poe's Law.
openness
That was
and
what I was thinking
opinions
of.
here on What Have We Done podcast.
Yeah, it's a whole thing called like Poe's Law, where it's according to Wikipedia, it's a adage of internet culture stating that without clear indicator of the author's intent, it's impossible to create a parody of extreme views so obviously exaggerated that it cannot be mistaken by some readers for a sincere expression of the views being
Yeah,
parodied.
no, I know this is a little
So it's
sidebar
like-
discussion, but could you actually repeat who said that? Because I think that our listeners would actually be interested in that.
It's a statement by Nathan Poe, and it was a little more directed toward creationism, which, I mean, we're going to discuss a little more later in our later topics. But his actual quote was, "Without a winking smiley or other blatant display of humor, it is utterly impossible to parody a creationist in such a way that someone won't mistake for the genuine article." And I think in a lot of cases, I mean, you see a lot of crazy stuff with like the flat Earth. Although apparently, I looked at
There
some
are
other
a lot
videos.
of
Apparently,
people,
that's
man.
like a legit
A lot of them.
society by
lot of
some
them.
crazy ass people, crazy batshit people. But I mean, like, there's a lot of different communities out there that started off as just like parodying like certain communities. I'm not going to name them because I'm not trying to start a flame war on Twitter or anything. But in a lot of cases, like some of these communities have started off as just parodies and then just become completely overwhelmed with people mistaking
Right.
it for, oh, these people are
It's
my kind of
unbelievable.
folks, and then completely just kind of flooding it, and then essentially creating a swamp of these undesirable, like, just unwanted opinions that people were originally making fun of, but people mistook for the real thing and completely
Right.
outnumbered the people parodying the original belief. And now those communities are like, yeah, those are
It's
kind of
not a good
you
look.
don't
Not a
really
good
want to be a
look.
part of that.
So the last of our seven, yeah. So the last of our seven futurists here is a guy named Mark Stevenson. He was a writer and a notable futurist. He wrote An Optimist Tour of the Future. He was quoted in saying, "The technologies aren't the most important bit, although they are super cool, it's what society does with them, and right now it's institutional change that's the sticking point." And then he had one more quote real quick that says, "What you really want to look at is new ways of organizing ourselves. For instance, the renewables revolutionize in a small Austrian town, open source drug discovery in India, patient networks like Patients Like Me, and schools that are throwing out the curriculum in order to get on with some actual learning." And I mean, there's been a whole big movement with young Greta and all her followers that I think they've just stopped going to school just because they're demanding change on the world. And I think that's kind of what he's saying, is people are just,
Wait, who?
Greta Thunberg.
yeah.
Oh, Greta Thunberg. Okay,
Yeah,
the reference of
young
young
Greta.
Greta was lost on me.
Greta Thunberg. No, I just couldn't remember how to pronounce her last name. That was all.
Thunberg, I believe.
Thunberg.
Something like that.
I don't disagree. I think the technology, we've had quite a few philosophers already have said that, right? Technology is not necessarily good or bad. It's
What society does with it, really.
exactly. And so, this guy really took not much of a bold stance and just kind of echoed some
What a
statement he
brave and
made.
controversial opinion he has
Yeah.
shared.
How did he do it?
Him and Jason Silva, I think, were number 6 and number 7 on my rankings there. But so anyways, you want to tell us about the worst alarm clock in the world there, Dre?
Oh, I would love to. Actually, I wanted to jump back for a second. How cool would it be to have any of these 7 futurists on the show?
Dude, I'll hunt them if I can.
If that's possible, or
I
if our
think Ray's
listeners have
too
any
famous, but
ideas.
I'll hunt the rest of them.
The most
I mean,
the most dangerous game, hunting for Twitter interviews.
Hell yeah,
Hey, we're a
dude.
podcast, not a Twitter interview service.
We're getting there. Once we
these
break
days.
500 listeners,
We'll advance.
let's see where we're at.
Hey, man, I'm all about it.
492, baby. It might
But
happen
it's
while
awesome.
we're on the radio here.
Yeah, I'm all about it. So jumping right into the world's worst alarm clock, or best alarm clock, depending on how you look at it, is
Hopefully.
the Doomsday Clock. So everybody's probably a little familiar with it, but what it actually is, and I quote, is the iconic Doomsday Clock symbolizing the gravest perils facing humankind is now closer to midnight than any point since its creation in 1947. So before we get into these next couple quotes here, I want to point something out. The Doomsday Clock fluctuates. The Doomsday Clock gets closer to midnight and can come back to, it's not just like, okay, we're 100 seconds away.
Right. It can move back and forth depending on the current state of the geopolitical climate and
Right.
what have you.
Exactly. And
So
that
let's
is
hope by next
something-
year it's back to, at least 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, let's hope so. 120 seconds is better.
Who wants
than,
to put a bet on it?
60 seconds. Gosh,
Got me.
I'm not ready to commit to
Me
that.
neither.
But
Me neither.
Big,
I will
big
say-
betting guy here.
this is like, I didn't know that. So when I when I researched this, I was like, oh wait. So in 1995, it was actually really far away. And think about it, 1995 was like a great year.
It was a good time.
And
Yeah. I
and then
remember
it's like
plenty of
Hey,
everything
Arnold
else
was
is
just-
too.
Yeah. Leading our lives.
Yeah, just living the dream, I guess.
Living the dream in
I mean,
my baby
wait a minute.
swing.
Dre,
It's like a year before Mario Kart came out.
what
Or
kind of
N64.
music were you listening to back then, Dre?
I was listening to Farm Animals and Friends, like DVD, because I was like,
They had DVDs
awkward.
back then?
Oh, sorry, VHS. It was like a Ronald McDonald like theme song with like all these animals and things like that. I wasn't a big guy in '95. In '95, but here's two of his quotes, and we'll wheel back around to a couple like contemporary references to the Doomsday Clock. Um, Humanity continues to face two simultaneous existential dangers: nuclear war and climate change, that are compounded by a threat multiplier, cyber enabled information warfare that undercuts society's ability to respond. The international security situation is dire, not just because these threats exist, but because world leaders have allowed the international political infrastructure for managing them to erode. Agree. Um, Currently, in 2020, it is 100 seconds to midnight. So that's a minute and 40 seconds.
And
for
to be
those-
honest, I think that came out in like February before Corona really
my
took
gosh,
its
we've-
wrath. Yeah, I wonder if
I
we've
guess
lost a few seconds
a
already.
pessimist and optimist would probably say like, yeah, we're closer now, or you could also say like it's possible that there are like war is somehow canceled, you know,
Right.
and then like, okay, well, maybe that helps. But anyway, we're expressing how close the world is to catastrophe in seconds, not hours or even minutes. It is the closest to doomsday we have ever been in the history of Doomsday Clock. We now face a true emergency and absolutely unacceptable state of world affairs that has eliminated any margin for error or further delay.
Unbelievable.
Now, right, you'd kind of, like we said at first, is you would basically look back in time and say, here's where like we were closest to world devastation or, you know, like a complete uprising, and it's just like this is the end of society as we know it. But it does fluctuate. Like, and you can Google
It
this.
absolutely does, man. But
True
it's
that.
we have to make it fluctuate. It's not. It doesn't fluctuate on its
Yeah.
own.
That is the unique part about it, and that I didn't realize. I had always thought like, okay, well, back in 2007, Linkin Park actually had a song. I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah.
you guys are big Linkin Park guys or what. But they're one of my favorite bands, and this came out on the album with like What I've Done. I forget the album's name, but Minutes to Midnight was the song in 2007. So that was, I think it was 2 minutes to midnight
Right.
back then. And granted, like
that a
13 years have
Iron
gone by.
Maiden song?
Is it?
It's just
Yeah, the album is Minutes to Midnight.
Oh, I'm a dumbass.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought 2 Minutes to Midnight was a Iron Maiden song.
I wonder if that was about the same thing.
I think it is. I think it is.
Oh wow, it is. Damn.
See, because that's what's scary is people. This Doomsday Clock isn't new. It's like we said, it's been going on since 1947. These people have been stomping their feet since 1947 that we're screwing up and going the wrong way. This was before the internet. This was before half of the things we're going to talk about today were even a problem.
Do you think we can message Linkin Park and say, "Hey, can you change that song "What I've Done" to "What We've Done" and just rewrite the words?
What have we done?
What have we done?
I'm sure for a certain fee they'd do it.
I'm sure they would too.
Those donations rolling, everybody.
PayPal.
Send us a
Hey, man.
PayPal so we can have a custom
Honestly-
Linkin Park intro.
Who was it? Who was it? Chester.
Chester
R.I.P.
Bennington?
Chester Bennington.
Yeah, rest in
Oh my
peace. What a,
gosh.
Rest in
what a
peace, guy.
brilliant.
Guy was the legendary.
Absolute
His
stud.
voice.
That was the
legendary.
voice of my middle school years.
Yup.
Man,
Big old bummer there.
for sure. But we could still maybe see if like, it's painful. I completely
And
forgot about that.
We don't want to get into it too much here because I think at this point, now maybe we won't officially reveal it yet, but we'll just say that, you know, mental health and suicide will have a big part to do with some of our future
Later
shows.
topics.
It's, you know, they're things that we want to discuss because they are big problems, and we want to, you know, we want everyone to live happy and not even consider something like that.
Right.
And given, you know, some of these things that we're talking about, we can understand why people could be upset, but there's reasons to be happy, you know. But with that said, you want to move on to the scientists, this was a separate report. So the Doomsday Clock was made by the Bulletin of International Scientists. It's a whole bunch of scientists that make that. And this next one it's by a different group of scientists talking about how all these systems are going to collapse and cause a global collapse.
I guess that the different systems that they're talking about are the climate change, extreme weather events, which I thought was kind of a result of climate change. The decline
Sometimes,
of,
I think.
yeah, because I thought, yeah, well, continuing onward, the decline of life-sustaining ecosystems, food security, and dwindling stores of fresh water. Each one of these proposes a monumental challenge to humanity in the 21st century. And the top 5 risks by likelihood, and this is done by the Global Risks Report, is extreme weather events, climate action failure, major natural disasters, major biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse, and human-made environmental damage and disasters. And the top 5 risks by impact by the same organization, Global Risk Report, are climate action failure, weapons of mass destruction, that came out of nowhere,
Yeah.
major biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse, extreme weather and water crises.
Yep.
I always thought that the extreme weather events were more or less kind of tied to climate change, which I feel
they
like one kind
somewhat
of
are.
Yeah, I would say I felt like one always follows the other.
Well, so one thing here I wanted to point out is that by likelihood and impact, climate action failure is up in the top.
Right,
So
and that's the one thing
it's-
as people can do something to prevent.
At least a little bit, right?
I
And
know we're gonna piss
thank
off
God
a lot
there are
of
companies.
I feel
Yeah.
like we're gonna piss off a lot of people saying that, but it's something we can do.
It's
like,
not political. That's the problem. Is people want to make it political, and it's not political. It's we've been bad and we need to be better. Period. I'm not here to blame you. If you made a lot of money off being bad, maybe put a little money back into being good. That would be nice. But
That's an
that's not
interesting
for me.
point, though, because it isn't a political thing,
It
but it
shouldn't
always
be.
lands
Shouldn't
that way.
be.
Yeah.
It is a
Always
political
lands
thing.
like, and
Shouldn't
it's
be,
like
though.
it's sad. It's like, well, are you against climate change? It's like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. Like, am I against humans contributing to it in some capacity? I would say my
But see,
opinion
that's
is,
the
yeah,
thing,
you don't want to do that. You
is
know,
People hear climate change and then they think immediately
lefty.
that I'm saying, like, if I say climate change needs to slow down, people literally hear that and they say, he wants to stop the coal.
right?
You know what I mean? I didn't
not
say
that.
that. I didn't say that. I think there's a lot of studies that eating beef is much more damaging than burning coal. But do you ever hear them talk about that? Hell no. They just want to stop the coal plants,
It's
No one
not
wants
a
to give up
political
beef.
thing.
It's so
not a
ridiculous
political
that
thing.
It
that whole thing has been
shouldn't be, yeah.
politicized.
It's the same as the health crisis right now. It shouldn't be political.
And really, I think that goes back to kind of what you were talking about. I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, where it just kind of comes down to who's got the money.
Yep.
And if somebody can lobby and put a bunch of advertisements, say like, anybody who says that we need to do something about climate action is against American clean coal.
Do you love
They also,
people?
Do you love people?
You must hate climate change. It's like,
yeah.
wait, what? Okay.
Oh,
Do you
just like-
do you love the world? Then you must love clean coal.
Up soon it's going to be, oh, if you fight for climate change, you're also a pedophile.
And
all
a
the Republicans
communist.
Are going to be like, the Republicans are going to be like, get all the pedophile that love the climate action and support us in destroying the climate. That's going to be like, what the fuck is happening? Like, that's what it feels like. It's turning into like idiocracy. It's just getting so outrageous with what they say and claim. Like, no one cares anymore. If
It really
if
is.
a
It's so sad
politician
that it
said
got
any of the things
politicized.
today, oh my goodness. Back in like even the 50s, the 90s,
It's
the 80s,
ludicrous,
none of them. They
dude.
would have got fired
'Cause you can-
immediately.
Because now on Twitter sphere, you can just propagate anything, and it can just be like, well, guess what they just said, and it's like,
Do
how
I
is
really
that
want to?
How is that news? But it is.
You know, you might be getting all your news from fake news like CNN, but here at Bob's newsdungeon.biz, he says climate change isn't real, so that's the underground news we need to listen to.
And people
I got all the documents to prove it.
And if you say, "Hey Bob, where'd you get your sources?" he'll go, "Are you a goddamn liberal?"
Do your research, you goddamn liberal.
It's like I want to see.
Tell me where
Teach
you
me.
got your sources.
I'm just asking. Oh, maybe if you did your own research, you dumbass liberal, maybe you too would come to the same conclusions I got documents for.
Why do
What?
we have to put our political views ahead of our lives? That's my problem.
I love
Let's worry about living, and then we can argue about politics.
Right.
That's all. I don't care who did it. Let's just not kill us all. That's my thing. I just want to be rich enough to have a beach house someday.
One day.
Donate to our Patreon, please.
Shameless plug.
I'm just kidding. So the other interesting thing I wanted to point out here before we move on is that the weapons of mass destruction is very impactful, but they don't actually think it's going to happen. Because if it was going to happen, it would be number one, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like nobody's that dumb enough to finally just throw the nuclear football, because that's
Right.
just everybody's well aware that nobody wants to just see the end of civilization as is. And I know that's
Right.
also a very controversial, stunning, and brave
And
statement
so
I just made.
see the
Extremist.
five. Let's look at the five by likelihood one last time. So it's extreme weather events, climate action failure. So extreme weather events would be, we'll just keep it blank for now. Just tsunamis, hurricanes. That's extreme weather events, right? Climate action failure, I think, is because regardless of who did it, the climate needs attention, right? That's climate action failure. Major natural disasters.
Which I thought
I guess
followed.
that's like even worse than weather events. So that's like
I was gonna say that
earthquakes and-
seemed to me like those are almost like the same kind of thing.
I think
You got-
they're kind of exaggerating.
I
here,
guess
but
not. Yeah,
I think they're trying to really get the point across, But so then next
Earthquakes
is the
and
major
such.
biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse, which is almost certainly happening because of global warming. And then fifth is human-made environmental damage. So they're not even pointing the finger at humans right away. They're saying 4 out of 5 is just happening and we need to stop it. And fifth, hey, humans, wise up.
Yeah,
But
I
all
mean, we
5
got like
need addressed, including
Jair,
humans.
we got like what's his name, Jair Bolsonaro over in Brazil, just openly, yeah, we're just gonna let all these different companies come in and completely log the Amazon. That's
Literally.
that kind of stuff is out of
And the
control.
Congo, I think the same thing's happening in the Congo. And it's, I just want to hear scientists say it's okay to do something like that before we start doing that. Like a lot of scientists, from all over the
Right,
world.
instead of like the
No
one
political
politically
bias.
appointed quote unquote scientist who said, yeah, there's no
Yeah.
problem here. Yeah, no problem there. Nope, it's all good.
Right.
I am not being paid to
Oh
make
my
this statement.
goodness. But so, with that said, I'm thinking at this point, just make this a two-parter.
So that's going to be part one. I think we've already done a fair amount of material for the better part of an hour, and we still have like 8 other subtopics we want to go through. So we're going to do a part 2 next week. In the meantime, if you guys could give us a follow on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at WHWD Podcast. Feel free to leave a review rating on Apple Podcasts on Podchaser if you're a non-Apple user such as myself. Also want to take the time to thank everybody who's been really supportive of us on Apple reviews and the Podchaser reviews.
I did download iTunes onto my Windows PC,
Rebel.
and it's not that hard. I thought it was gonna be really challenging. I know I made the switch, but I did it.
I use
So
Groove.
it is possible.
I use Groove Music for all my podcasting needs. But we want to really give a shout out and thank you very much for supporting us. It really makes us happy to see that people are actually enjoying us spouting off about these different topics. And the more you guys kind of help us figure out what you guys like to listen to, the more fun we can make it for you guys. So appreciate all the positivity you guys have been spreading. Hope you guys keep it up. Go ahead and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, so that way you guys never miss an episode. It's hard to do that considering we do this weekly, but hey, you never know. You might be on vacation, might be in a FEMA cloning camp for all I know. You might want to come back. You and your clone might want to come back to your house, download an episode. We'll have it. Don't worry. Just got to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. And then feel free to send us an email or donate a dollar through PayPal to whathavewedonepodcast@gmail.com for each episode you guys enjoy. It helps us make the show better for you guys. Helps me afford my non-existent Maserati, which I definitely am not going to do with an extra dollar. But yeah, we really appreciate all of our fans out there. Yeah, you guys make this possible. Glad you guys enjoy listening to us talk. All that fun stuff. I'm not really ever good at giving outros, so at this time, I'm Jay.
My name is Dre, and I like to listen to Jay spout off on outros.
Is Lee dead? I think he's dead.
Hi, I'm Lee, and my microphone was off.
Love it.
Love it.
Hey, see you guys on part 2.
Yeah, so you guys come part 2.